Okay, so these notes are Constitution 101. It is basically an introduction and overview of the U.S. Constitution for your government test that you'll be taking soon. And so first and foremost, what is the U.S. Constitution? It is the supreme law of the land. It basically sets the foundation and the source of your legal authority for the existence of the United States of America and the government, particularly the federal government of the United States. It is pretty much going to provide a framework for the organization of the United States. So who can do what, how things are supposed to operate, who's responsible for what, who answers to whom, things of that sort. As a review of the unit that you just finished with the Constitutional Convention, remember that that convention takes place from May until September in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The point is to decide how America is going to be governed. Initially, the Constitutional Convention is called in order to revise the existing Articles of Confederation, but a lot of your delegates have bigger plans, particularly men like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, who wanted to create a new government rather than fix the existing one. They elect George Washington to preside over that convention. Again, key point is to remember that it was initially to revise the articles, not to come out with a completely new document. Who's responsible for writing the Constitution? James Madison is given credit as being the father of the Constitution. A lot of it has to do with his education, his background, a lot of the things that he did and read in regards to government. So a lot of his important contributions to the Constitution are going to include the Virginia Plan, separation of powers, and Bill of Rights. All right, your basic principles of the Constitution, there are 7 of them, and it's very important that you remember all of them. First up, we have popular sovereignty. And that's that the government's power, I should say, resides in the people. So we, the people, people rule. Always, always remember that. Popular, people, sovereignty, rule. People rule. Limited government is next, and that's the idea that no one is above the law. So the government is not all powerful. You can only do what people allow it to do. You can only do what the Constitution states that you can do. Following that, we have separation of powers. This helps to prevent one branch from becoming too powerful. This is where you have separation of what each branch is responsible for. So the legislative branch making the laws, the executive branch enforcing the laws, and the judicial branch interpreting the law. This also has a lot to do with your checks and balances as well. Federalism is your division of power among your national governments and your state government. So what the federal government can do, what the state governments can do, and the powers that they share. All right, checks and balances, as we kind of address with separation of powers, is that each branch has the ability to monitor or check the powers of the other. So that's where you get the idea of presidential veto, that Congress can override the veto, that the Supreme Court can declare a law unconstitutional, things of that nature. Republicanism is that the people exercise their power by electing people to represent them. Okay, and let me correct to this now because it's going to bother me. All right, so people are able to exercise power by electing people to represent them. So with republicanism, just think of REP, representative republicanism. All right, individual rights is your protection of personal liberties and privileges. So this is where the Bill of Rights comes in, and that the government is going to protect people's basic rights. All right, the Constitution is also divided into articles. Article 1 has to do with the legislative branch. It has a bicameral or 2-house legislature with the Senate having 2 senators from each state and the House of Representatives being based on population. Remember, that is what comes out of the Great Compromise from our previous unit. Your representatives are going to serve for 2-year terms, and senators serve for 6-year terms. The important powers that are in the legislative branch are that they can make laws, they set taxes, they declare war, they can override vetoes, they can borrow money, they regulate international and national trade, and they can also print money. The second article of the Constitution deals with the executive branch. The executive branch has the president and vice president, and they're elected for 4-year terms. Okay. Qualifications to be the president: you have to be at least 35 years of age, a 14-year resident of the United States, and a natural-born citizen. The president is elected by the Electoral College. Important powers here are that they're the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. They can grant pardons, make treaties, appoint federal officers, and ensure that laws are executed. So remember, that's what the executive branch does. it executes the laws. Article 3 is the judicial branch. And with the judicial branch, you have the Supreme Court judges that serve for life unless they are impeached or they decide to retire. And the judicial power rests with the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts created by Congress. Their important powers include things like deciding cases of constitutional law and federal law, cases involving ambassadors go straight to the Supreme Court. Judicial review is going to come later, which we'll talk about quite a bit in January, and that's in 1803 with Marbury versus Madison. That is their big power, their ability to declare a law unconstitutional, a law or action, I should say. Your other important articles include Article 4, which describes the state's powers, that states have the power to make and carry out their own laws, that state laws that are related to the people and problems of that particular area, and that states respect other states' laws and work together with other states to fix regional issues. Okay. Article 5 has your amendments. So your amendments are proposed when 2/3 of the House and the Senate deem it to be necessary. They can also be proposed if 2/3 of states deem it necessary. In order for an amendment to be ratified, 3/4 of your state legislatures or by conventions in 3/4 of the states have to approve that amendment. So amendment process, remember, to propose it's 2/3, to approve it or ratify is 3/4. Article 6 is federal power. So it's your supremacy clause that the federal law is supreme to state law. So you can't have a state law that is going to contradict or go beyond what a federal law does. And it also includes that there are no religious tests for public office. In Article 7, you have the federal power. It details all those people who signed the Constitution representing the original 13 states. Right, important amendments in the Bill of Rights include, and the numbers are all messed up here. Oh, terrible. That freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition are the First Amendment. The second is the right to bear arms. Your Third Amendment is no quartering of soldiers. Fourth Amendment, no unreasonable search and seizure. Fifth is your indictments, due process, self-incrimination, double jeopardy, the rules of eminent domain. The fifth includes a lot of things which we'll go into detail in a class. It should be 6 through 10 here. So Sixth Amendment is the right to a fair and speedy public trial, that you should know what you've been accused of, you can confront your accuser, this with subpoenas, your right to have counsel or a lawyer. 7, the right to trial by jury in civil cases, so civil 7. 8, no excessive bail and fines or cruel and unusual punishment. 9, there are other rights not written in the Constitution, so they don't want to say that, oh, this is an all-inclusive list and there are no other rights that you could have. It kind of leaves things open that you could have more rights than what's there. And then 10th is that all rights not given to federal government belong to the states and the people. Okay, other important amendments that you will need to know that we won't get to until the spring are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which are the Reconstruction Amendments post-Civil War. The 13th Amendment is going to abolish slavery. 14th Amendment grants citizenship, so due process, equal protection under the law, and that all people born in the U.S. are citizens. And then the 15th Amendment is the right to vote regardless of race, color, or previous status of servitude. 13, 14, 15, free citizens vote. Okay. Within your next U.S. history course, you'll deal with some other important amendments, which are listed here in prohibition of alcohol, women's suffrage, which is important for you to remember that women do not get the right to vote until the 19th Amendment. Then repealing prohibition, presidential term limits, prohibiting poll taxes, and lowering the voting age to 18. All right, so that is your general scope of the Constitution. You will have your government tests coming up shortly and a TBL quiz over these notes in class soon.